Hello guys, now we finished uploading all of the delivery and billing events and processed both prospective and retrospective contract mock. And we also went over every single buttons for database operations, including how to backup, how to restore, how to reset database completely, and how to append and take over another database from someone else. And we also went over how to generate revenue journal entries, how to run the contract history between a period you desire, and also how to populate the latest contract status. Now we want to go back. I want to show you how did I set up material right and also the variable consideration, because those two are often we call it problem child for revenue recognition, right? So let me go back to the UAT template and look at, first of all, let's look at how I set up SSPs for variable consideration and material right. So for material right, normally for the distinct versus non-distinct, I would set non-distinct according to the respective underlying performance obligations. But most of the cases, 99% of the cases out there, material right itself is also a distinct performance obligation. So here in the SSP template, I set up material right has a list price $1. And also notice here, I didn't set up a midpoint discount percentage, meaning I'm telling the system whatever my list price for the material right is, it should be its fair value for allocation. With this, now let's go to the contract 1 setup to see how I actually set up contract 1's material right. So look, contract 1 has a material right for hardware, and for hardware, material right always have set the $0 selling prices, but even though it has a $0 item, material right has an intrinsic fair market value. In our case, this value equals $1,000 because I put a 1,000 quantity here. And if you recall, this SSP's template we have, it's a 1,000 quantity for a performance obligation having $1 list price and 0% discount for the SSP. That means in contract allocation, it will have 1,000 SSP to allocate among the contract among all the rest of the POBs, right? So this is how you set up material right. And also for variable considerations, here, first of all, variable considerations is not a performance obligation. And let me repeat it again, right? Variable consideration, even though you set up the SSPs for variable consideration here, variable consideration is not a performance obligation. And for this reason, variable consideration should always have $0 list price. And you, of course, because you have $0 list price, you can just set $0% discount percentage here and 0% SSP range method as well, because it doesn't really matter now because your list price is 0. And what variable considerations, when you think about how to set up variable considerations in your actual contract, let's look at how we set it up contract number 2, right? So even though the variable consideration has a list price of 0, because variable consideration itself represent potentially most commonly seen are the discount, right? So itself actually has a quantity. You might say, okay, when I first set up the contract, I have a quantity of 1 for the variable consideration, and that discount, that one discount I provided to the customer worth $100. So the selling price here is actually negative $100. And think about this, because it doesn't have a list price. And that means it will no longer have any SSP values assigned to this line when you perform the contract transaction price allocation, which means this line will not get any allocations when the system performs allocation, but this line is simply reduce the total transaction price by negative $100, and then this contract essentially is allocating with $900 in total as the original contract, right? So to prove this, let's look at our latest contract status again. So eRev preserves the original contract's allocation, even though after many rounds of contract modification, after many rounds of delivery and billings, all kinds of things you are doing, the original contract's allocation will always be preserved in eRev. So as a proof, let's look at whether contract 2 has the total allocation of 900. So if you scroll to the right here, and you see the original allocation here, and this is the variable consideration line, and you see here it has $0 original allocation. That's because variable considerations does not have SSP. And here you can see the original total contract price is $900 instead of $1,000 because you provide the $100 discount. So this is how you set up variable consideration in your contract using eRev. And many of you would also wonder, well, you've talked about how to set up material rights, and you talked about how to set up variable considerations. So what happens if the material right get delivered? And what happens if you when you bill the customer, you actually provide the discount as part of the invoice? Basically, you deliver the discount too, right? How do you process those events? So I will just pause here for a moment and let you think about it before we get to the answer. Let's cover variable consideration delivery first. So variable consideration delivery is essentially it's a time for you to invoice the customer, and when you do the invoice, you basically provide the discount you promised in the contract, right? So here in the UAT template, we have a scenario set up for that. If you look at our second, like a February contract setup, where I believe it's in contract 4, we have a variable consideration. This variable consideration have a quantity of 1, basically one discount for actually $200 discount. And then if we go back to the delivery and billing UAT templates, and I believe it's in March delivery and billings, this is where it shows how you deliver variable consideration discount. Basically, in that billing for contract 4, when you are invoicing the customer for one quantity of software of $200, you are also delivering half of the discount you promised to the customer, and you give 100 discount along with the software POBC invoice for that invoice. So total you just billed 100 for one quantity of the software, and essentially you exhausted 50% of the variable consideration you promised in the contract. So this is it. This is how you tell the system 50% of the variable consideration is delivered. Pretty straightforward, right? And it's very intuitive. So this is the variable consideration. After we finish delivering variable consideration, now it's time to figure out how to deliver material right. So material right delivery basically has two scenarios. One is you fulfill your performance obligation for material right by simply wait it out, meaning your material right expires and the customer didn't choose to exercise the material right. So in that case, in fact, you actually delivered the material right by just simply sitting the material right out as time passed by. So in this case, we have a UAT use case set up already for this, and this is the simplest delivery for material right. And for contract number 1, material right hardware, recall we have 1,000 quantities for material right, worth $1,000 because the list price is 1. And material right, of course, doesn't have billing. So here you just simply say, I fulfilled my obligation, so I actually delivered 1,000 quantities of the material right for the hardware. And of course, current billing put 0. By doing this, the revenue recognition event will automatically be triggered. So this is how you deliver the material right, by setting a dot, right? And this is the easiest material right delivery. And of course, oftentimes the customer choose to exercise material right because it's called material right for a reason, because it has a favorable pricing for the customer. So a lot of customers just choose to exercise their material right and to purchase more underlying product and services. So in that case, eRev choose the accounting position to process exercise of material right as part of the contract modification. And in the next couple minutes, I will show you how eRev fulfills a material right delivery if the material right gets exercised. The accounting position to treat the exercise of the material right has a contract modification. So if you go to the contract mod UAT and look at the last UAT example we have in September, this is where the customer exercised the material right, and also and by exercising the material right, of course, the new POB gets added, and it's a prospect contract mod, and happened to contract 3. And the delivery is simply you can mark the quantity to be -1,000. In this case, the -1,000 means you are taking material right out of the contract because now it gets exercised. By deducting the material right from the contract, you also need to add the underlying performance obligations into the contract as well. And this is where you add another POB number 5, which is a new POB for consulting again, and billing is 1,000 and the quantity is 5. And this is all you need to do for a customer when they exercise the material right. Pretty straightforward, right? And you just need to know, just need to remember, take out the quantities when the material right get exercised. So overall, how do you feel, guys? The material right exercise and the variable consideration exercise are typically the most complicated exercises in 606 and FRS 15. I think I kind of prove using eRev makes it much simpler, and I hope you can leverage eRev to basically fast track your revenue recognition. All right, thank you guys.